A 54-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the Tuesday's fatal shooting at the Walter Sisulu University's Mthatha campus. Police have confirmed that the victim was a student and a former NSFAS beneficiary. The suspect is due in court next week, Tuesday. We are now joined by the Portfolio Committee Chairperson for Higher Education, Tebogo Letsie, who's joining us to have a conversation about what should be happening going forward. But first of all, a very good morning to you, Tebogo. Just your reflections on what's been taking place at the Walter Sisulu University over the past few days now this week.
Good morning, Aldrin, to yourselves, the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. Thanks for having us. Firstly, we want to send our condolences to the family, friends, and students at Walter Sisulu, the family of Sisonke Mbolekwa. May his soul rest in peace. We send our condolences to the students and the university community at Walter Sisulu and across the country. What has happened at Walter Sisulu University is really unfortunate. It's something that we don't want happening in our institutions. It's a really sad week for us.
Yeah. A really sad week for us, considering that you also had this violence that has played out. But initially, this week, when the first protest took place, the university came out, the university spokesperson, being in conversation with my colleague Kolim Gambi, alleged that the reason that there was this protest action was because of a new rule that was instituted by the university that says that students are not allowed to have their partners sleep over. But what has been revealed over the past few days is actually this issue around accommodation and the poor infrastructure within the university itself. And here we're speaking about the university's own residents that it still does receive money from the state. What's your reflection on the state of the infrastructure at the Walter Sisulu University?
Well, firstly, we're happy that the suspect who shot and killed the student has been arrested, has been charged with murder and attempted murder. We're also happy that the University Council at that institution convened urgently on Wednesday and instructed management to put him on precautionary suspension with immediate effect. Those are the developments that we are welcoming as the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training. You'll also remember that the university would have said Sisonke was not a student at the University of Walter Sisulu University, a fact that was proven to be a lie. We are also asking for consequence management and that particular spokesperson and everybody involved in trying to downplay what their member would have done. Back to student accommodation. Student accommodation in South Africa, we've said it many times that it has become a commodity. They are making student accommodation very expensive with very little that they are putting in. I mean, the students there would have said that they are striking because they don't have simple things like microwave, fridges, kettles and all of that. So, and when you look at how much they are charging for student accommodation, it's an exuberant amount of money, which we've actually, when we're doing oversight, we're telling universities that it does not make sense that a university accommodation that is owned by the university, co-funded by the Department of Higher Education and Training, should be this expensive. And now we're learning that they are not even giving basic necessities there. So it's a discussion we're still going to continue to have with both the department and individual universities to get to the bottom of why are they making accommodation so expensive.
Yeah, and also the accountability, I think, when it comes to the maintenance of the particular infrastructure. In 2015, the Minister then of Higher Education, Bladin Zimande, had published the policy on the minimum norms and standards for student housing at public universities. And I just quickly want to read the introductory remarks that the minister makes in that gazette. He says that the report of the Ministerial Committee for the Review of the Provision for Student Housing at South African University, September 2011, established that the accommodation of students is broader than mere provisioning of beds. It is about establishing living, learning, and social communities. And if we look at the videos that have been posted and what the learners and students are saying about the university, it's evident that the university is in conflict of what those norms and standards should be.
Yes, that is why we've made a point many times that universities cannot accredit accommodation on their own because they are going to mislead the National Student Financial Aid Scheme for paying for exuberant amount of fees that this accommodation don't meet the minimum norms and standard. We have made a call that NSFAS can be paying about between 13 and 17 billion on student accommodation, and they don't play a role in accrediting this accommodation. So if a university accredit their own accommodation, they will tell you that this accommodation have X, Y, and Z, and if the law says NSFAS can't play a role in doing oversight on this accommodation, their role must just be to pay accommodation. We are going to see all of these things that we're seeing today. That's why we've made a call that NSFAS must play a critical role in making sure that this accommodation that has been accredited, NSFAS can put their head on the block and say they do meet the minimum norms and standards. This is not the only university. I mean, if you go down in the south of Gauteng, the Valley University of Technology, they've got the same problem. We went to Free State the other time, University of Free State, they've got the same problem. CUT have got the same problems. We went to TUT not so long ago at the beginning of the year. It's a sector-wide problem, and that is why we're saying those minimum norms and standards must be updated, but NSFAS must play a role in making sure that when they are saying they are paying for accommodation, it's accommodation that they themselves will say that they meet the minimum norms and standard. Our students, you'll remember that a few years ago, there was a survey that was done on student accommodation, the throughput rate between students who stay in student accommodation and those that stays at home. And the surveys was very clear that the success rate of students at universities, it was higher for those who stay in student accommodation than those who don't stay at student accommodation. So we want students to stay in student accommodation, but this student accommodation must be fit for purpose.
Yeah, and that is now speaking about the living conditions of the students. Now moving on to the education part. Now the decision that has been taken by the Walter Sisulu University to suspend face-to-face classes in the meantime, they says until further notice. What's the Higher Education Committee's response to how the university has now responded to the violence that played out yesterday, and also looking into how the private security had opened fire against the protesting students at the Walter Sisulu University with rubber bullets?
Our view is simple, that over-militarization of our campuses is a no-no. Bringing in extra security to come in and calm the situation is not, as it has never assisted. It never assisted when we were students. More than 15, 20 years ago. It will not assist today. How the university handled that situation, in our view, is they handled it badly. They could have met with the student leadership. They could have made concessions on what the students were raising. I mean, it had to take counsel to convene and inform management that what these students are raising are legit, that you can't expect them to pay so much in student accommodation, and you don't have microwaves, they don't have kettles, they are literally staying in a boot camp of some sort, and you are not responding properly to them. They had to go and strike. And when they strike, instead of university saying, okay, maybe we were wrong, they go and lie about the registration status of a student. Two, they bring in extra security, something that we don't agree with. Look, I seated here, I think council had no choice but to recommend that the face-to-face learning at that institution must come to a halt for a few weeks because the situation was already out of control, which was something that management brought up upon themselves. If they had, when they started, if they had went and engaged with the student, council would not have said let's close down because they could have resolved this matter itself. Yeah. So it's a matter that we believe, and we're going to make sure that when we write to the minister requesting answers, that we're going to make sure that there is proper consequence management on the leadership of that institution. Life has been lost, and a number of students have been injured. Even yesterday, the videos that we saw on social media where students, some of them lost their ears because private security came in there and they just fired rubber bullets at students, So we that's our view on that matter.
Yeah. What you're saying now about the militarization is something that the minister had also mentioned. She says that we've been observing throughout our institutions that there is an emergence of weaponizing and militarization of our campuses. So the minister indicating that it's not something that's happening at one specific university, it's something that's happening across the board. Now, how do we deal with that particular aspect? Because on the one end, you have the res manager who has now been arrested after firing at students. Sisonke Mbolekwa was one of those who was fatally wounded in that particular incident. Some saying that could it be that the res manager was trying to protect himself? The other question is that why did the res manager even have a firearm on campus?
Yeah, the investigation that the university must do is that one, they must find out how did the security company that has been hired, being paid millions of rands by the institution, allow an employee of the university to bring in a firearm. He might not be the only one who has a firearm on campus. That is the reality. It might be that there are others as well who also have their guns there. So this security, honestly, there was a serious breach of security there, and they must make their name of this security company public so that they don't get any security tenders anywhere in the sector, because if there was this negligent and their negligence have led to a student losing their lives, they must not get employment here. In our sector, we welcome the council decision yesterday to say that with immediate effect that company, the month-to-month contract that they have with that institution must be stopped by management. We are going to, follow that story very, very closely with that particular university. The minister is right. These universities, they act as if they don't have to account anywhere. Sometimes some of these universities, the minister goes to an institution, want to meet the executive leadership of the institution, and they don't come. That's how emboldened they are. They just disrespecting because they are hiding behind what was supposed to be academic freedom, and now they are saying they are autonomous bodies. But they were, if you look at that 2005 document that spoke about this autonomous system and academic freedom, they were autonomous on academic freedom, but they want to be autonomous global. They want to be autonomous everywhere. They don't want to account anywhere. It's not the only one. A number of these universities are doing these things. So we are going to call in the next term of parliament. We're going to look into calling a colloquium on some of these things that these universities are doing. But the biggest change that we can do will be to amend the Higher Education Act to give the department more powers and the minister more powers to intervene with these institutions when they are doing wrong things. Because if we allow things to continue the way they are, as the Act dictates now, we're not going to go anywhere. We're going to get poor leadership at these institutions, and they will hide behind autonomous, that the institutions are autonomous and they don't want to account.
All right. Thank you so much for making time for us. Tebogo Letsie is the chairperson for the Portfolio Committee.